We don't talk about this enough. Why is it that so many smart kids grow up feeling stuck, disconnected, and completely alone? They were supposed to be ahead of everyone else. They were praised, rewarded, told they'd go far, and yet, somewhere along the way, that promise turned into pressure. That praise became a prison. And now, those same kids, the ones who once stood out, are struggling as adults. They can't find motivation. They feel socially behind. They struggle to start things, follow through, or connect with people. And worst of all, they don't know why. Because on the outside, everything looks fine. They're still sharp, still capable. But inside, there's this constant sense of isolation. Like life is happening to other people, and they're just watching it go by. And here's the thing. This isn't random. It's not just how life goes. There's a reason for it. Smart kids often build their entire identity around being smart. And when that happens, the very thing that made them feel special as children becomes the exact thing that traps them as adults. So let's talk about why this happens, and, more importantly, how to undo it. Because none of this is about failure. It's about a survival strategy that stopped working. And if you understand how you got here, you can start to find a way out. It starts early. A kid solves a problem quickly. Wow, you're so smart. Gets an A without studying. You're a genius. Understand something the first time? You're gifted. And it feels good, because being smart means standing out. It means you don't have to try as hard. You don't have to struggle like everyone else. But here's the hidden cost. When people praise intelligence, they're often not praising effort. They're praising effortless success. And over time, this plants a dangerous belief. If I'm smart, things should be easy. That belief will quietly sabotage everything once you grow older. Because the moment something isn't easy, when you struggle, when you fail, when you don't understand something right away, it doesn't just feel frustrating. It feels like a threat to your identity. You start thinking, if I'm supposed to be smart, why am I struggling? So instead of pushing through difficulty, you start avoiding it. You don't raise your hand unless you're sure. You don't play games unless you know you'll win. You don't pursue things you could love because they might expose you as someone who isn't so smart after all. And slowly, life starts to shrink. You stick to what you're already good at. You avoid risks. You protect your image instead of growing. And while everyone else is out there experimenting, failing, developing, you're stuck inside a shrinking comfort zone. And the longer that goes on, the harder it is to leave. Because now, you don't just fear failure. You fear being seen failing. And that's where the isolation begins. When you stop growing, you also stop connecting. Think about it. Real connection comes from shared experiences, being on a team, going through awkward stages together, working hard towards something. But if you start opting out of those things, if you remove yourself from situations where people bond, you miss out on the moments that create real friendships. You don't join the club because you're afraid you'll be bad at it. You don't try the sport because it's unfamiliar. You avoid group projects because they frustrate you. And without realizing it, you start stepping out of the flow of life. But here's the problem. You still crave connection. So what do? You lean on what you know, your intelligence. You try to understand people instead of relating to them. You analyze, you observe, you run simulations in your head. And this creates something called cognitive empathy, where you logically understand what others feel, but you don't emotionally engage with them. And it works, up to a point. You can navigate conversations. You can keep up socially. You might even seem charismatic on the surface. But underneath, you're exhausted. Because instead of just being with people, you're calculating. You're constantly thinking, what should I say? How should I respond? What do they think of me? So now, even socializing becomes something you have to be good at. And to avoid failing at it, you start avoiding it altogether. And that's when the loneliness really sets in. But you're smart, right? So you should be able to think your way out of this. And that's what you try to do. You try to fix your self-esteem with rationality. You write out arguments to convince yourself you're fine. You analyze your own behavior to death. And none of it works. Because intelligence wasn't designed to fix emotional pain. It's a tool for solving external problems. And when you try to use it to fix what's broken inside, it just keeps looping. Because there's no intellectual answer to the question, am I enough? That question can only be answered emotionally. And for smart kids, emotional growth is often the one thing that got left behind. So, how do you fix this? Step 1. You have to stop identifying as the smart kid. Not because intelligence is bad, but because basing your self-worth on it is toxic. Instead of asking, what will make me look intelligent? Ask, what will help me move forward? Stop protecting your pride. Start embracing discomfort. Let yourself try things and be bad at them. Because the only way forward is to take action anyway. Not perfect action, not clever action. Just honest, imperfect, human steps forward. And if you can do that, if you can stop clinging to the version of yourself that needs to be above it all, you'll start to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Connection. Not because you earned it, not because you deserved it, but because you were finally willing to step down from the pedestal and into the world where the rest of the people live. And it turns out, that world isn't so bad. In fact, it's the only place where you can truly be seen. And more importantly, it's the only place where you can finally feel at home.